we have to create the tables for the structure. Uh, to create the database, now there are two views. This is one of them. I don't be using that view, so I'm going to close this table. So you can see there is no objects inside this database. Okay, now to create the objects inside this database, we have to use this menu called create. Click on create menu, then you can see the objects which I mentioned in the lecture: table, query, form, and report. Tables, queries, forms, and reports. The first object we have to create is tables. Without tables, you can't create queries, forms, or reports, because the table is the structure which uses to record data. Without recorded data, queries, forms, and reports, they are useless. Okay, and you can click on table. Again, you can see that the previous view. I told you that I'm not going to use that. So for here, you have to use this option called table design. It is the best way to create a table. By using this one, we can customize our table. Okay, click on this, then you will get this kind of a design view of a table. The name of the table is table1, which we can change it while we are saving the table. Okay. Now, by using this section, this one and this one called property sheet, we can customize or design our table. Now you can see there are kind of these labels: field name, data type, and description. And here you can see in our file or the exercise, you can see these details: field name, data type, field size, and other information. Okay, and here you have to, I told you that in a table, there are rows and columns. In a row, we will record data. And by using columns, we can separate, or we can divide those data into a certain sections called fields. Inside a single field, there are all the data should be same kind of data. Means in a field called student ID, you can record only student IDs. In field called student name, you can record names. In date of birth, you can you have to record date or time. That means date of birth, not student ID or student name. Okay. So here you have to type the field name for the first field of that table. After creating these basic fields, you can actually, if you want, you can insert some additional fields. Okay, let's start with student name. I'll type student name, STUD underscore name. Okay, this is the field name. And now this one will be the first field on this in this table. So the data type, as the default data type, it will select this one called short text. It is also this data type text. And if you click on this button, you can see a list of data, list of data types: long text, numbers, large number, date or time, currency, auto number, yes or no, and some other data types. From this list, you have to select the data type which perfectly match with the data that you are going to save in this field. Now we already we have decided it should be text. So you can select short text or long text. But both are text. But in long text, it reserves more a larger space to record data. So as the student ID, we only need about 10. So it is better to use short text. And you can see that after typing field name and selecting a data type, you can see some other properties down here. They are called field properties. By using these field properties, we can customize our field by using these properties. First one is field size. You can see here in this table, it should be 10. So to adjust the field size, you have to use this area called field properties. Now here you can see as the field size, it is 255. That means you can use 255 letters to type this data. But here we need only 10. So you can delete this 255 and type 10. Then you can see field called format and another one called mask and caption, default value, validation rule, validation text, required, allow zero length, fields like that. Okay, formats will be now here. If you click here, you can see an empty list. That means there is nothing. For this data type called short text, there is no formats. And by using this property called input mask, you can define kind of format like this. It's actually a kind of a format. We use this mask to an example for mask is something like this. Like here, if you type a password on a certain text box, you can see a kind of a symbol or dot or an asterisk mark. That is a mask. Your actual password will be covered by that mask. But here it is also a mask, but here we are going to use this mask to build a kind of a structure which helps the user to input their data. Okay, something like this. Now you know that as the student ID, now here's the data set. You can see the first data in this student ID. It starts with the letter, then 2 numbers and 3 numbers. And also you can see this symbol slash. By using this mask, we can set this field or the text box which we uses to enter data for this starting this letter. That means the first letter of this student ID. We can set it to accept only letters, not numbers. And for these two, to type the batch number, we can set it to accept only numbers. And to these three, to accept only number. For that, we can use this input mask. Simply here you are given the mask called A99 999. You can simply type it like this. This means you have to start with the letter, then slash 2 numbers and 3 numbers, and automatically it will add this symbols like slash. You don't have to type slash symbols, it will be added automatically. So only thing you have to type is, let's say if you want to enter this number A/00/045, you can type A00045. Automatically these slashes will be added. And also, let's say if this is a kind of a faculty database, like for your faculty, now all the data inside this database are the details from the students from your faculty. So for that, you can you know that all the data included in this field, it has same faculty code. So by using this input mask, we can set that particular faculty code as a kind of a static code by using this double quotes. If you type something in double quotes, it will be displayed. You can't change it. So it is kind of a help with these faculties. They can create their own input mask with their own faculty code. Okay. Now in this exercise, we have multiple students from multiple faculties. So I don't use that double quotes. I'll use only this mask A99 and 999. And also this can be further customized. I'll discuss it later. And this one, caption. I told you that we use this caption to make it easier to identify this particular field name and the data which we that is going to be recorded inside that field. So here you can type this caption. It doesn't matter if you use uppercase letters or lowercase letters or kind of a sentence case. That means start with the uppercase letters and other in lowercase, like this student ID. Or you can type student identification number, anything you like, but it is better to be kind of if it is with less words, like 2 or 3 words. And default value for this, there is no default value. Okay, let's start with the second field. Now for the first field, those are the things, and second one is PUD name. Data type is text. Field size should be 50, and there is no format or input mask and caption, and student name. Okay. And there is no default value. Okay, now it says it is required. That means you can't leave it empty. To enable it, you have to go to this property called required and select the option yes. Required yes. If this required is set to no, that means you can leave it blank. And allow zero length, you have to set it no. Okay, now the third field, DOB. Data type is not short text, it should be date or time. Now it is a different data type than this text. Now let's see what are the formats available. If you click here, you can see that for the earlier field there was a property called field size, but for this field, and since the data type is date or time, you can't see a field size. And if you click on format, you can select the format. Now here it says the format should be medium date, and you can see these labels: general date, long date, medium date, short date, long time, medium time, short time. It doesn't mean that you have to enter the data in this format. You have to enter the data in this format called short date. Then it will be saved in the database according to the format you selected from this format menu. And you have to select medium date, right? Then required yes. Then do not caption date of birth. Caption is date of birth. Okay, that's all for this field. The next one is stud underscore 6. Right, the data type is text. Field size is 1 to hold a single letter, and allow zero length. Sorry, required yes. Allow zero length no. Okay, default value is m. Here you can see this property called default value. In this, you can type the default value. It should be m. And validation rule. Here it should accept only MOF, not other letters. Only MOF. Then inside this property called validation rule, you have to mention it like this: M. If it need to be only M, then you can leave M. If there are set of values, you can add them by using these MOF or like that. there are three. You can type M O F O something like that. Okay. Now, since there are only two MOF, then it will accept only letter M or letter F. And by mistake, if somebody type a letter other than MOF, then he or she will be notified by using a message. We can customize that message by using this validation text. Inside that it says to type valid. Okay. Then we have to change this into index duplicates. Okay. And then the caption into 6. Okay. Sorry, we have multiple. Okay. Those are the records. I just omit this student ID to edit later. Now you can see that by mistake I have added two fields with the same name. If you did something mistake, you can right click here and you can select delete rows and you can delete that particular field. And if you want to insert a field, you can right click here and click on insert rows. Then a new row will be inserted. Then you can type stud underscore or student ID. Did I type this text? Field size is 10. Okay, I think I explained the mask, but with the kind of wrong field, sorry, wrong field name. The only change it should be, the field name should be student ID. Okay. Not name, or there should be mark and student ID. Okay, now we have all the four fields need to be in this table called student MST, student ID, student name, date of birth, and student age. Okay, now I have created the I have created the fields. Now the next one is you have to save this table. Before saving a table, you have to define this one called primary key. I told you about this. In each and every table, there should be a field assigned as the primary key. By using that primary key, we will identify those records uniquely. Now here the primary key is this one, student ID. Before saving the file, table, we have to define. To define it, we can use these two methods. First one is right click, and you can see this option called primary key. You can click on it while keeping the this mouse pointer here. You can see in this design tab this primary key tool. you can click there. Then you can define this particular field. Now you have selected, or you have put the cursor on as the primary key, like this. If you want to unassign it from this primary key state, you can again click on it. Okay, this is the primary key for this table. So I have to assign it as the primary key. Then now everything is set. All the properties are set. Okay, then click on save. Click on save this, save, or click on just press Ctrl S. Then you will get a dialog box like this: save as and table name. Now here you have to type this table name, student MS. STUDENT_MST. Okay, then click on OK. Now you can see on left hand side, you can see the list of objects in this particular database. Now here you can see earlier it was empty. Now you can see the table which I created and saved just now, student MST. Now I can close this table, or the view of this particular table is called the design view of this particular table, like this. Now we have a table. To open this table, you can open a table in two views. First one is design view. That means by using that view, you can design the structure of that table. And you can open it in datasheet view. That means it is the view that we uses to enter data. To open this table in datasheet view, simply we can double click on it. If you want to modify the structure, you have to right click on it. Then you can see these two options. First one is open, which is to open in datasheet view, and second one is design view, which will open the design view, which we were in the designing stage of this particular table called student MST. Okay, I'll double click on it to illustrate the behavior of this particular table, and to how these particular properties can be used when entering data. Now from here you can adjust the size, not the field size, the size of the view from here, like Excel. Okay, now in this view you can enter data. Now you can see if I click here, you can see kind of a set of underscores and two slashes. Those are the result of this input mask. Now the first one should be letter. We can type A, or also you can type the number. If you use A, you can type a number or letter, but you can type only one letter. Since we have used only one A, you can type only one letter. Okay, for the as the batch number, let me try to enter a letter. Now I am pressing the letter keys on my keyboard. but nothing exists. But if I type a number like this, still exists. That's how this particular mask works in the datasheet view of a table. Now let's customize this table. Now it has to enter a data. You know that I told you about this student ID. It is primary key. You can't leave a primary key with an empty data. Means you can't leave the data student ID field in empty state. You have to enter a value. Like there can't be any student without a student ID. This is a must. There is no student ID for a particular student. That means is not a registered student of this university. So let me add, I think okay. Now instead of A in this mask from the design view, in the mask, instead of A, I typed L. If you use L in the mask, then you won't be able to enter a number. It only accepts letters. So actually it should be for this input mask, instead of A, it should be L. Okay. Now in some faculties, there are more than one letters. If I type two L's here, then I can enter two letters, not two numbers, but two letters. Like that. Like that, by using mask, you can customize the view of this particular data sheet view of a table to make it easier to enter data for the person that are entering the data. Okay. Okay, let's use 1L to make sure that this data set meets the requirement of that particular mask. Okay, like that you can enter data 01,566, then type the name. When you are entering date of birth, you can see this calendar. You can select the date from that calendar. So you know that this particular calendar is a kind of a calendar of that the same year that we created the database, or the exact date which belongs to the current year. And as the date of birth kind of not possible to select the data from this calendar, this is also kind of useful on operations like banking. You can simply select the current date by clicking today. You can see that the current date will be selected. For the previous days, you can navigate from these buttons, or you can type values by using the keyboard. Now, when you're entering data, as the format, we use the medium date format, but when you're entering data, you have to use this format called MMDDYY. That means month first, then slash, and date slash year. MMDDYY. Then for this sex, it should be MOF. Now the default value is M. You can change it into F if you want, but let me type another letter. Instead of MOF, I type G. And after that, I try to enter the next record. Now I will get a message like this. Now with this message on my interface, I can't enter data for this database or the table. It says invalid sex. That means the data entered is invalid. So I have to change it into a valid data. Now I can freely move to the second record like this. That's how the validation rule works. Okay, now I have entered the record. If you want to delete the record, you can simply use that, select that record by click on this left hand side of this particular data sheet view. Then right click and select delete record. Then you will get a warning message like this. Click on yes to confirm the delete. Okay, that's how we create the table. Okay, let's enter this set of data. The first data is A00045. Student ID. Then to navigate to the student name field, you don't have to use the mouse. Just use the tab key. And as the date of birth, it should be 5th of July 1980. That means 7/5/1980. Sex is female. Then tab to the next record. E00230 is Kumara. Is born in March 31st, 1979, and male. I can leave it because the default value is male. And the next one is A9956, Anura, to 1982, also a male. Sorry. Slash 1982. Yeah. Like that, we can keep on entering data for this table. It will be automatically saved. You don't have to worry about saving it or not. sure enough, go to this save icon and click on save. Okay, let's go to the second table, subject MST. Now student MST is created, and also the data is also filled. And to create the second one, create table. I told you that we use this table design, create table design. And here it should be subject ID, data type is auto number, and here you can see as the field size lone integer. So there's another replication ID and new values. You can select two options, increment and random. That means instead of this auto number, instead of increasing it from 1 to and upwards, you can add a random number. And format. If you want, you can select a format like this. It is not necessary. And the caption should be subject ID. Okay, now it says it is the primary key. I can set it into the primary key and move to the second field, subject name, text, field size should be 50, and it is required, required 2 years, and do not allow zero length, that means allow zero length, no. Caption is subject name. Subject name. Okay, save the table as subject underscore MST. Okay, now we have two tables. And the next one is enrollment MST. Create table design. The field name is enrollment ID. Data type should be auto number. It is the primary key. And second one is student ID text. Field size is 10. You can also apply that particular mask that we use in student MST table L/99/999. Now you can see this student ID field and this student ID. It is the same data. So it should be, it doesn't mind the student ID, the field name. You can change the field name, but the data type and field size should be same. And text, yes, and it is required, yes, and Do not allow zero length, means allow zero length, no. And index with duplicates, okay. And caption is student ID. Right. The next field is subject ID. It is a number. Subject ID, it is a number. Field size should be long integer. There is no format. And it is required. Index with duplicates, okay. Caption is subject ID. And the last one is marks. Data type is number. And set the field size into integer. There is no format. Index with duplicates. Then validation rule. Now we are going to use this particular field to enter mark. So when we enter mark, mark should be 0 and between 0 and 100, and also those two also can be included. So we have to set a validation rule to accept only marks in the valid range. So here you have to type a validation rule, and here it should be it says only marks less than or equal to 100. We can simply type it like this. In the keyboard there are symbols that we are familiar with mathematics that we use to mention the comparison symbols, less than, greater than, equal, like that. And we can use those symbols. Now this is the symbol which we use to mention let me use this notepad to explain it. Okay, now in maths we usually mention something like this: x less than 10 and y greater than 20, like that. Now in this validation rules, we can use the simply use the same method that we use us, but instead of this x and y, we don't have to use a value. We can simply use like this. If that particular data that need to be entered need to be less than 100, then we can simply type like this. If it need to be greater than 0, simply write this. Okay, here it says it should be less than or equal. In maths, we use less than, and to add the equality, we use a kind of a line right here. But here in computer, we use this method, less than or equal 100. it says less than or equal 100. Okay, let's type this. So less than or equal 100. If it need to be greater than 0, then it's also can be validated by using, that means you can use multiple validations, use with O greater than or equal 0. Usually we use this part at the beginning, greater than or equal 0 or less than or equal. But here we have to use instead of O and. That means these two validation rules must be satisfied. Here it asks to accept, set the validation rule to accept only marks less than or equal to 100. So you can use like this. Then as the validation text, we have to type invalid marks. Right. Then save the file as enrollment MST. Underscore MST. Then click on OK. Okay, let's see this enrollment MST table. I can type student ID 1, subject ID 1, marks 120. I know that 120 is greater than 100. So it is an invalid marks. So after typing that value, I press the enter key, then I can see an error message saying invalid marks. If I type 100, it will accept. But okay, 65 also accept. Okay, I'll delete this record. Okay, those are the three tables: student MST, subject MST, and enrollment MST. Now these are the three tables we need for this exercise. Now we fed this set of data for the student MST. Now I have to enter this set of data for the subject MST. Subject name is geography. The second subject is history. Third one is economics. And you can see in this table, the data type of this subject ID is what is called auto number. You can see for this field, I can't enter a value. I can only enter values for this field called subject name. And according to the subject name I enters, it will automatically enter a record number. And last one is zoology. Okay, that is the data set for this subject MST. And the last one is enrollment MEST. Now 00045 ID subject ID 168. Now you can see when I enter value, enrollment ID is now 2. Now, the reason is earlier to show you this show you about this how this enrollment tool works for this particular field called marks, and I entered the record and also I deleted it. So it is also considered as a record. That particular record number is also included. That's why I can see 2 here. Okay. Let's see how to reset it. Design enrollment ID. Let's see how to reset it. This to reset it, you have to create the table from the beginning, and you have to copy the content to that table. Okay. Continue with the data set A00045, subject ID 168. A00045, subject ID 2. There is no marks. A00045, for subject 385. A00230 for the number 4, it is 76. A99 156, the subject 2, there is no. A99 156, the subject number 3 is 42. Okay. Those are the data set to be inserted in these 3 tables. Okay. Now in this exercise, it says to follow these steps. Okay. I'll publish this exercises on your LMS later. And first one is modify Kumara's date of birth to be 31st May 1979. That data is recorded in student MST table. Open that table, then go to Kumara, this record. It should be 31st May, that means 5/31/79. And we have to delete this record called zoology from this subject MST table. To delete a record from a table, you can go to that record and you can see this kind of a column or a margin of this design view, sorry, datasheet view, and right click here, and you can see that particular record is selected. Then right click and delete record. Click on yes to confirm the delete. Then it says modify the table structure of student MST. That means this table. We have to add a new field name called passed out, and the attributes of field size are given here. Go to the design view by right click design view, then add a new field passed out underscore out, and the data type is text, and field size should be 1. And in this table, it should be only these two letters, yes or n. And we have to use this validation tool to make sure that they enter one of these values. And there's also, it says the set this default value as n. So type n as the default value. And for the validation rule, type y or n, yes or no. And caption should be passed out. Right. Again, save. Click on save to save the structure. Then click on yes. There will be a kind of that kind of a message, because in this table we have already inserted the set of data. So here we can type the new values. Okay, let's say no. Okay, like that you can edit data, and also you can customize or modify the structure of these tables later if you want, but there will be a sort of that kind of error messages, like when you are modifying the structure of the table, if there are data that you have already inserted in your table, because after modifying, if you add a new field, then there won't be any data related to that existing set of data. So you can simply type a set of the values like this, mentioning that there will be an error message. So keep in mind that. And as the next step, it says use the relationship window to create one-to-many relationship between the student MST and enrollment MST table. And in the lecture, I told you about now in this database, I have created 3 tables. And without relationships, the meaning of this particular database is kind of nothing. So we have to create the relationship between these tables to maintain something like this. Now you know that there are 3 tables. First one is student MST. In the table, we are recording student details. And in this table, some subject MST, we are recording subject details. And in enrollment MST, we are recording details of for the marks of students for this particular set of subjects, which we have recorded in this table called subject MST. So you can see clearly there is a relationship. There are students and there are subjects, and also they have obtained some marks. Those marks are recorded inside this table called enrollment MST. And let's say by mistake, if somebody enter a student ID in this table called enrollment MST, which does not exist in this data set called student ID in student MST, then it will be a kind of a sensitive mistake. And let's say another mistake that can be somebody entered the valid student ID and invalid subject ID. That means a subject ID that is not recorded in this table. And also this is also possible, an invalid student ID and invalid subject ID. To overcome those problems, we can create relationships between these tables to maintain the student IDs entered in this field is recorded inside this table, and also subject IDs which has entered in this subject MST table. To create that relationship, we have to use another interface called relationship. You can find that interface from this tab. Go to database tools and you can see this button called relationships. Click on it, then you will be on a interface like this. From this interface called relationships, you can create the relationship. Now, when you're on this relationship window, first of all, you have to add the tables in your database to this window. To add those tables, you will be given a show table dialog box. From here, you can see all the tables that you have created in this database: enrollment MST, student MST, and subject MST. You add this, if you want to add this table, you can double click on it, or you can select the table and click on add. And after adding tables, you have to close this dialog box to create the relationship. Simply you can add the tables by double click like this. Double click on the table name, then they will be appeared on this window. Then you can close it by using this one. And you can hide the tables by right click. Now you can see there are three tables: enrollment MST, student MST, and subject MST with their field names. This is the table name. These are the field names. And you can see, I told you that to identify the primary key, there is symbol like this with a small key. And to remove a table, you can right click on the table, table name, and click on hide table. And to add a table, if you want to add another table, you have to use this method. Go to show table or right click show table. Then you can add the table that you don't see on this window and click on close to remove the add table dialog box. Also, you can arrange these tables in a way that to make it easier to create the relationship. Now, according to the instructions given in this one, we have to create this relationship first. Create a relationship, one-to-many relationship between the student MST and enrollment MST table. That means we have to create a relationship between this table and this table, in these two tables. To create a relationship, we use the common field in those two tables. Then you can identify the common field. Here, student ID. Inside this table, you can also see the field called student ID. By using these two tables, you can simply create the relationship. Okay, this is how to create the relationship in Access. First, click on this common field of one table and press and hold the click and drag it onto the second table and onto the common field name. That means from this student MST and enrollment MST, the common field is student ID, and click and drag one field from one table and drop it on the second table and onto the common field. Here, click and drag student ID field onto the student ID field on enrollment MST table, like this. And after releasing the click, you will get a dialog box like this saying edit relationships. And you can see the fields. Student ID and student ID should be there. That means the common field name, names of the common field. Now you can see, change the field name when you are creating this table, but the data type and the field size should be same. So now here the common field is student ID from the student MST table, and here also is student ID from the enrollment MST table. Then you can see a create button. Before click the create button, you have to select this one. Enforce referential integrity. Without enforce referential integrity or selection of or enabling this option, that particular relationship is meaningless. And also you can select two other options, cascade update and cascade delete. That means by using this, we are going to create a relationship. And with this relationship, by this referential integrity, data of this enrollment MSP, the student ID is always referring the content of this student MSP table. That means if anybody enter a student ID to this enrollment MSP, then it will be compared or referred from this table. If that particular student ID is not available in this table, then it will be mentioned as an error. To enable that, we have to select this option. And also by using this one, update related fields. Let's say by mistake, is kind of an impossible, something or some situation make it to the administration to alter or modify a certain student ID of a particular student. Then we have to modify the student ID. Now in this database, that previous student ID is also in use. So if you have to modify it, you have to modify the student ID of this table and this table. If you have created this relationship, then you have only one modification on this table. This is the only modification that we have to do. The other places like this student ID field will be updated if you have selected this one, cascade update related fields. And also another option, cascade delete related records. That means if we delete a certain student, then the related records of other tables, like in its enrollment MSP. If we delete a certain student, all the records will be deleted if we have enabled this option. Right? If you want, you can enable it, or if you don't want, if you don't want to delete records of in your database, then you can leave it unselected. And you can see this one to many. Here it says create a one-to-many relationship. Here it has identified the relationship type as one-to-many. Now click on create. Now you can see a relationship is created between these two fields. Okay, it says enable to these those two options, cascade update and cascade delete. To edit a relationship, you can simply right click on this line which represent the relationship between these two tables, and you can see option called edit relationship. Click on it, then you can update or edit the relationship between those two tables or the relationship which you have created already. Then click on OK. Now you have created the relationship between these two tables. And again, it says create a similar relationship between the subject MST and enrollment MST. That means this table and this table. Find the common field. It is subject ID. Click and drag one of the field and onto another. Then we'll get the dialog box. Click on enforce referential and update, cascade update and cascade delete. Then click on create. Right. Then click on save. You have to save the relationship status. Or if you are going to exit from here, it will ask you to save the relationship status. So it is better to save the relationship state by using this save or control S. Then you can close this relationship window. Now let's open this student MST table. Now earlier we didn't see this kind of a plus mark. Now after creating the relationship, we will be seeing this kind of a plus mark. If you click here, you can see the details of the related fields. That means for the subject details of the particular students. And if I click open the data view of the subject MST, you also see the same. And you can click on this plus sign, you can see the student details, the marks and the student registration numbers for each and every subject. So by using this student MST table, we can enter students, and by using a subject, we can add the subject, and also from here, you can simply add a mark sheet for this particular subject. You can type the registration number and the marks, registration number and mark, like that. Simply you can enter a set of marks for each and every subject by using this subject MST table. Now it was possible because of these relationships. Without relationships, we can't use that facility. Okay, now we created a database, 3 tables, and we entered some data, and also we created the relationships. And let's see how in next practical session, that means I think on tomorrow, let's see how this relationship works when entering data. Okay, I'll publish this exercises on your LMS, and you can follow the instructions and you can create the database by your own. Okay, let's stop the lecture today.